What's good, MJ traders and investors? It's Rod with Power Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth. It's Thursday, August 4th. Hope you're doing awesome out there today. And in this video, going to lay out the key differences among some of our Canadian LPs, some of the top. Not going to cover every single one, but for the sake of this video, we'll go over Cannabis, Sundial, Tilray, and Hexo. Going to really differentiate how these companies are completely different from one another and how they can all have places in a long-term portfolio and how we need to drop the tribalistic nature that we have in MJ. Before we get to it though, make sure to smash the like, help support me in the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell to be notified on any future videos. Just as a fair warning, I own Canadian operators, I own American operators, I own about 12 or 13 different MJ stocks. I have a mix of picks and shovels, so retailers and ETFs, a mix of American and Canadian MJ. There's going to be winners and losers, both sides of the border. And I did a video not too long ago, back on May 18th, saying, I hope all MJ does well. All boats will rise together, and we should drop the tribalistic nature. I don't know what it is about MJ and what it is about crypto, but there's so much tribalism in these sectors, and it just has to end. It doesn't do anybody any good. We have to be mature and come to terms with the fact that there's going to be winners and losers both sides of the border. And I'll put this link here from the Irwin Simon, Tilray CEO. That was from today, and that was conducted by Yahoo Finance, and he talks about how the US is just a $100 billion opportunity in MJ alone, just the US, right? So there's going to be a ton of market share and a ton of, there's going to be winners and losers. There's going to be a ton of market share for all of MSOs and LPs to potentially capture, right? So again, it would be naive to say that there's not going to be winners and losers both sides of the border. I'll put a link to this as well. And there's going to be, even abroad, right? In Europe and in different, countries in Latin America, things like that. In my opinion, though, I think Tilray and Hexo are going to be a top 5 global powerhouse, and they're going to be top 5 global MJ companies in the next 3 to 5 decade, looking a decade out, right? So, and I encourage you I'm not going to play this, but it's 8 minutes long. I'll put the link. I encourage you to listen to all of this. This is a really good interview by Irwin Simon, but essentially talks about how the US is $100 billion industry alone. And I tweeted out Tilray's growth projection and percent of total revenue, and I made one for Hexo as well. But this is from that slide, from that interview that I just mentioned with Yahoo Finance, and he lays out the percent of total revenue from Tilray's growth, right? This is what Irwin Simon is projecting. So 39% is coming from their MJ business, right? This is how different Tilray is. They're forecasting most of their revenue, and they're forecasting $4 billion in revenue by 2024, and they're saying distribution business is going to account for 54%, right? We know they have CC Pharma. They also have beverage and alcohol business as well, which will only account for about 6%, and then their wellness business, which is Manitoba Harvest, would only account for about 1%. But you can see here the majority isn't even coming from MJ, right? And that's how different they are compared to, say, a Hexo. I took the liberty of going out and making one for Hexo, and here it is. 100% is from MJ, right? So that's how different. And Irwin even said it himself in one of his prior interviews. I think it was actually on the earnings call that they just had. He said that Hexo's an ingredient company and Tilray's a branding company, right? And so they need each other. They complement each other very, very well. And then if you take a look at a name like Sundial, right? They're big into retail, and they just made an acquisition of Alcanna, which was one of the biggest retail and alcohol, MJ and alcohol retailers across Canada. And you can see now that with that acquisition, they have Spirit Leaf, they have, like I said, from all the acquisitions, they now have over 350 plus retail stores in MJ and liquor. So the differences there is Tilray has convertible notes in Hexo and MedMen. So essentially, upon federal legalization, they'll have potential majority stake in MedMen, which they would be getting into the American side and into retail, because MedMen's big into retail, especially in California as well, but across multiple states, the Bay Area, very, very key states, right? So they'd be kind of pivoting to that direction. But Sundial, again, a very different business, right? They're big into retail, into liquor and MJ, whereas Hexo doesn't do anything like that. They're just a MJ manufacturing products company. All they do is 100% MJ. And then you look at a name like Tilray, again, they have MJ distribution business, their beverage and alcohol, and then their wellness. But all of these different categories can easily be integrated once federally legal in the U.S. and abroad. They can easily, introduce that into the MJ segment as well. And then you got a name like Canopy Growth, which has BioSteel, right? It took a majority stake in BioSteel, which is a hydration sports drink, and they just inked a deal with the Toronto Blue Jays' Alek Manoah. And just a partnership deal, right? Marketing type of ploy, right? And they also have Storz & Bickel, which is a massive, massive manufacturer and global leader in vaporizer design and manufacturing. So different types of paraphernalia and different utensils and things like that, right? So it's a completely different style. And then Canopy Growth also has retail locations with Tokyo Smoke, right? So again, they're all very, very different. And I hope they all do well. I think that there's enough market share for them all to do well, and then a lot from the US to do well as well, right? But we know that Tilray, they said on the earnings call, they have about 20% market share in Germany, right? What other company, even in the US, right? What MSO, what American company in MJ do you know that has anywhere close to that type of international footprint? And what other Canadian LP or Canadian operator in MJ do you know that has anywhere close to that footprint, right? It's second to none, right? Tilray is the leader in the space, and they're massive, right? Just look at the amount of dollars traded here on March 25th of this year. There was around $2.5 billion traded in one single day. That is massive. There was 302.811 million shares. So it was a little over $2 billion was traded in Tilray. So you got to think that this is the institutional baby, right? This is what Wall Street is focusing on. And you got to think now that they're partnering with Hexo, might Hexo turn into Wall Street bankers' new favorite as well, right? If they're both working hand in hand, and we know that Tilray is the poster child for the Wall Street banks, well, one would think that Hexo is probably going to follow suit. Canopy obviously was the leader in the space for the longest time. But because of a result of mergers and acquisitions with Afria and Tilray, Canopy Growth has been sliding in market share. And they also are relying heavily on U.S. legalization as well, right? And they haven't been as aggressive with the mergers and acquisitions, but they're relying heavily on the acreage deal and things like that whenever the U.S. legalizes, right? So taking a look at Tilray, it is a potential cup and handle that we're looking at here at the moment. Same with CGC, and CGC does have earnings tomorrow. I did a video on CGC and their earnings if you want to check that out, but essentially not going to dive into it too much for the sake of this video, but we could see a potential cup and handle, and I'm leaning bullish here. We could see an EMA 12 and 26 bull cross leading into tomorrow. If SPY starts to see daily consolidation and a pullback tomorrow, that would be headwinds. So obviously if SPY can see more upside into tomorrow, that's going to be tailwinds and good for MJ. And it probably isn't going to take much for CGC to beat expectations. We're expecting 113.26 million in terms of revenue, and that's in Canadian dollars. And EPS is forecasted at negative 0.285. I'm not super bullish on their earnings, but they don't have to beat by a whole lot to see, because everybody's bearish, right? So they wouldn't have to beat by a whole lot to really see some surprise and upside in the stock price. But hopefully we can drop the tribalistic nature. It doesn't do anybody any good. Let's all be mature adults, and we can all disagree and still be friends. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. But essentially, at the end of the day, we need to come to terms with the fact that there's going to be winners and losers all sides of the border. And again, I think that all of these companies can do well. I hope they do well. I hope you do well. And if you could smash the likes, share the video with anybody that might find value, I would appreciate it. It's Rod with Powell Group. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth. See you in the next video.